Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really close look at something most of us deal with almost every day: consumption. You know, that chase for the high, the sort of instant buzz you get from buying something new, but also the darker side, when that chase becomes, well, maybe more than just a habit, maybe even an addiction. I want you to just, for a second, picture that moment. You know the one. Maybe you're opening a box, that crisp new smell, or peeling the plastic off a new gadget. It's that rush, right? That feeling like, everything's okay for a minute, the stress just melts away, and you feel,
Yeah.
I don't know, totally complete just for that second.
Yeah, and that feeling, that sense of perfection you're describing, that's pure brain chemistry. It's a massive hit of dopamine.
Yes.
That's the brain's reward chemical flooding all the pleasure centers. It's basically designed, biologically, to feel amazing, like you've hunted something down and claimed your prize.
But the sources we looked at, they were super clear on this. That high, it's running on borrowed time, always. I mean, how long does that feeling, that world is perfect feeling, actually last? An hour? A day, maybe?
If you're lucky. You use it once, show it off, feel great,
And
then comes the fade. And that fade often brings a pretty nasty psychological hangover. Suddenly, the amazing new thing is just, well, it's just a thing. It's not new anymore. And what rushes in to fill that space is often, regret, maybe some guilt, definitely that knot of financial anxiety when you remember what you spent.
oh, yeah, the credit card bill looms.
Exactly. And the brain, remembering how good that initial hit felt, it interprets this new kind of flat feeling as a sign that, hey, something's missing again, which of course triggers the urge for the next purchase.
So we're calling this whole cycle, this sort of desperate loop, the consumption frenzy. And it's really crucial, isn't it, to see where this stops being just like a bad habit and crosses over into a serious psychological trap. We're going to get into Onyomania today. That's the clinical term for shopping addiction.
Right, so our mission, really, in this deep dive, is to figure out if consumption, which, let's face it, society sells us constantly as the fix for unhappiness, the key to being someone, if it's actually a real solution. Or is it just, a temporary escape hatch that actually digs us deeper into a hole? Is swiping that card therapy, or is it actually a trap? That's the big question.
Okay, let's dig in. Part one. Why does buying stuff feel like it fills a void? I mean, it feels instinctive, right? Trying to use external things, objects, to patch up these internal emotional gaps. Why is that pull so strong? And what does the research tell us about people who really lean into that?
Well, it points us straight towards something researchers call the unhappy materialist. And this finding, it's kind of counterintuitive, but it pops up again and again in the studies. People who are super materialistic, meaning they put a huge value on buying and owning things, they tend to be, generally speaking, more unhappy, more anxious, less satisfied with their lives overall. Definitely less satisfied than people who focus more on non-material stuff, like relationships or learning things or contributing to their community.
See, I still find that a bit baffling. The whole world, like our whole economy, screams that getting stuff equals success, equals happiness. So why does chasing that stuff leave us feeling empty?
Yeah, it's a paradox, isn't it? The emptiness seems to come from a couple of key places. First, it's the type of goals. Materialistic goals are usually what we call extrinsic. They depend on what other people think, on external validation. Whereas intrinsic goals like getting good at something or building a strong relationship, they feel good in themselves, whether anyone else notices or not.
Okay, so one is about looking good, the other is about feeling good internally.
Exactly. And second, materialistic folks often score lower on things like empathy and relationship quality. They tend, sometimes unconsciously, to prioritize objects over people. And since we know that deep, lasting happiness really relies heavily on social connection, on belonging, well, prioritizing stuff creates this kind of systemic isolation. You try to fill that relationship void with more stuff, which just makes the loneliness worse underneath.
Wow. So chasing the things that are supposed to make us look successful actually pushes away the people who could give us real happiness. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's self-sabotage in a fancy package.
It's a perfect storm, really, a feedback loop of misery.
Mhm.
And that connects right back to that short-lived dopamine fix we mentioned. The brain's attraction to shopping is powerful because it's immediate. Bang! Instant pleasure hit. It's like a quick Band-Aid, especially when we're feeling stressed or anxious or kind of lonely.
Totally. You have a terrible day at work, or maybe someone cancels plans on you, and the thought of buying something shiny and new, it just shifts your whole focus, doesn't it? Takes your mind right off the painful stuff and onto the thrill of the hunt.
Precisely. It's classic emotional escape. The huge problem, though, as we said, is that the good feeling wears off almost instantly. And this leads straight to the escalation requirement. Your brain adapts incredibly quickly. It's like tolerance with a drug. That little cheap thrill that worked 6 months ago, it does nothing now. So to get that same initial rush, that same level of high, you're psychologically pushed towards needing more stuff, better stuff, or often significantly more expensive stuff.
Right. The thrill isn't just the thing itself. It's also about breaking a bigger financial barrier. Like, you need the deluxe version of the dopamine hit just to feel okay again.
Yes, the goalposts keep moving. And this ties right into how we use possessions for status and identity compensation. I mean, we live in a world where your worth, your identity often feels like it's tied to brand names and what you own.
It really does feel like possessions are the fastest way to write your autobiography for everyone else to read, doesn't it?
That's a great way to put it. And when we look at social comparison, this whole thing goes into hyperdrive. If someone's struggling with the feeling, not good enough, low self-esteem, maybe feeling like they haven't met society's expectations, they often try to compensate for that externally through buying things.
So they're basically trying to purchase self-worth. Like, if I feel inadequate inside, maybe this flashy car or this expensive watch will shout to the world, hey, I'm successful, therefore I matter.
Exactly. The object becomes this, psychological crutch. It offers immediate visible proof or perceived proof of status. If you can afford this, you must be that kind of person. And that ego boost, fueled by how you think others see you, it feels real for a moment. But, and this is the crucial bit, it's purely external support. That watch can't actually heal the internal feeling of inadequacy.
Right.
So the second the car gets scratched or a newer watch comes out, that old feeling rushes right back in.
Right.
And you're off looking for the next shinier external fix.
The minute the object stops doing the heavy lifting of defining you, you need a new object to carry that weight.
Precisely. And this leads us to a really fascinating mechanism that keeps this whole frenzy going, the Diderot Effect. Have you heard of this?
I think I have, vaguely. It explains why one purchase often leads to another, right? Like a chain reaction.
Exactly. It's named after Denis Diderot, the French philosopher.
Yeah.
The story goes he got this beautiful, luxurious scarlet dressing gown as a gift. Amazing, right? But then he looked around his study and suddenly his old, simple furniture looked shabby. Clashed horribly with a magnificent robe.
Okay. I see where this is going.
Yeah. So he felt this compulsion to upgrade everything else to match the robe. A better desk, a nicer chair, new artwork. All because the single new item made everything else feel inadequate.
So the fancy robe didn't bring satisfaction. It actually created dissatisfaction with everything he already had.
It triggered this cascade of inadequacy. Think about it today. You buy a massive, state-of-the-art TV, looks fantastic, but suddenly your old TV stand looks kind of pathetic underneath it. And your speakers suddenly look cheap and mismatched. The initial TV purchase creates this often unconscious need for a new console, maybe a whole surround sound system, new cables.
You didn't just buy a TV, you bought into a whole living room renovation project without realizing it. The initial joy over the TV turns into annoyance about the rest of the room.
Exactly. The satisfaction gets replaced by this cognitive dissonance, this mental itch, because things don't fit anymore. And you feel driven to buy more stuff to resolve that mismatch. The Diderot effect basically ensures that consumption is never really finished. It's structurally designed to be a never-ending cycle of upgrading and harmonizing. It demands escalation.
Wow. Okay, so that structural demand, that Diderot effect escalator,
Yeah.
that seems like the path that can take this sort of uncontrolled buying and tip it over into actual addiction. When does the frenzy become Onyomania?
Well, it crosses that line when the buying stops being about, needing or wanting something useful and becomes purely about escaping an emotional state. It becomes a compulsion.
Yeah.
Onyomania, or compulsive buying disorder, it's often seen as an impulse control issue. It's not just, oh, I like shopping. It's the inability to stop yourself, even when you know the consequences are going to be devastating. When it gets to that clinical stage, the person is really stuck in this predictable, pretty vicious cycle. We should probably break down the stages.
Yeah, let's walk through that. What does that cycle actually look like emotionally and behaviorally?
Okay, so stage 1 is tension impulse. This usually starts with some kind of intense internal stress, could be triggered by sadness, anxiety, feeling low. The person feels this mounting pressure, this uncontrollable urge like a pressure cooker building up. And they truly believe that only buying something can release that pressure. The feeling is in control, not them.
They're desperately searching for that relief valve.
Exactly. Which leads to stage 2. Relief pleasure. The actual act of buying, clicking confirm purchase, or swiping the card, it provides this immediate but temporary sense of calm. That dopamine rush hits again. For that short time, the tension disappears. They feel powerful, maybe even euphoric, complete, for a moment. But it's incredibly fragile, totally dependent on the thing they just bought.
And then comes the inevitable price for that temporary high, stage 3, the crash.
Yep. This is when reality floods back in. The rational brain kicks back online, and it brings with it this wave of really powerful negative emotions. Intense guilt, often self-loathing, and definitely severe financial anxiety as the reality of the spending hits. The shame of not being able to control the impulse can be absolutely crushing. This stage is incredibly painful and often goes hand in hand with other issues like depression and anxiety.
And here's the awful twist, the paradox of addiction, right? Those horrible feelings, the shame, the guilt from the purchase, they become so unbearable.
That the person seeks immediate relief from those feelings, which leads right back around to stage 4, repetition. They shop again compulsively to escape the misery caused by the last shopping spree. They need that quick hit of dopamine, that temporary high, just to silence the crash of guilt and shame for a little while. And that creates this self-feeding loop. It's an inescapable knot that just gets tighter and tighter every time they try to find relief through buying.
That pattern just perfectly highlights the core psychological engine driving this whole unsustainable mess. Hedonic adaptation, or, as it's often called, the hedonic treadmill.
Right. Hedonic adaptation is basically our built-in mechanism that makes lasting happiness from static things impossible. Your brain is wired for novelty, for survival, not for staying blissfully happy with the same old thing forever.
So you buy that amazing new jacket, you feel fantastic wearing it for, what, a few days, maybe a week. But pretty soon it's just another jacket hanging in your closet. It's become ordinary.
That's adaptation in action. Your brain just goes, okay, jacket is here. That's the new normal. And crucially, those dopamine receptors that lit up so brightly when you first bought it, they get tired, desensitized. So to get the same kick, you need something newer, something better, something maybe way more expensive, just to register the same level of excitement you got initially.
So you're running faster and faster on this treadmill, spending more, wanting more, but emotionally you're staying in exactly the same place. Because the second you get the thing you thought would finally make you happy, poof, the happiness starts deflating.
The treadmill's purpose, from a consumption point of view, isn't to deliver lasting happiness. It's just to keep you running, keep you buying. It guarantees you'll never quite reach sustained satisfaction through acquiring stuff alone. It ensures discontent, really.
And while the internal damage is huge, the real-world consequences of this, especially when it edges into Onyomania, the financial and social fallout, that can be utterly devastating.
Oh, absolutely. We're not just talking about going over budget a bit. We're talking potentially crippling debt, mountains of it. And the compulsion breeds secrecy. It has to. So trust in relationships just disintegrates. People start hiding purchases, lying to their partners or family, maybe taking out secret credit cards.
And that secrecy itself must create so much shame, which probably just fuels the urge to shop again for that temporary relief.
It's a vicious cycle. That's why shopping addiction isn't just a money problem. It's really a crisis of self-worth and connection. The outward behavior, the compulsive buying, it's often just the visible symptom of much deeper internal pain. Low self-esteem, maybe unresolved trauma, overwhelming feelings of inadequacy. The buying was an attempt to fix this self. But the debt, the lies, the broken relationships, they just make the original problem, the internal distress, even worse. The external chaos mirrors the internal one.
Okay, so we've got this system that kind of preys on low self-worth, uses things like the Diderot Effect to make us always want more, and traps us on this hedonic treadmill that chemically guarantees we'll never quite arrive at happy. The massive question then becomes, how on earth do we get off this treadmill?
Well, if the core problem is trying to fill that internal emptiness with external stuff, then the core solution has to be a pretty fundamental shift, right? We have to stop the external quest and focus deliberately on internal fulfillment. We need some concrete, practical strategies for that, ways to fill our lives, not just our closets.
Right. So strategy number 1 has to be about stopping the runaway train before it leaves the station, interrupting the impulse. We need a way of recognizing emotional triggers.
Yes, this is all about that critical moment when the urge hits. You feel that tension rising or that little voice saying you need this, and maybe you're already reaching for your phone or hovering over the buy button. The absolute first state is creating a conscious pause mechanism. You have to deliberately stop that automatic, almost conditioned reaction. Just stop, breathe.
But that pause needs to be filled with something useful, right? Not just empty space where the urge can creep back in.
Exactly. It needs to be filled with self-inquiry, really honest self-inquiry. You need to ask yourself 2 key questions. First, what am I actually feeling right now and why? And get specific. Is it boredom because your weekend feels empty? Is it loneliness after scrolling through social media? Is it stress because of a looming deadline? Name the feeling. Give it a label.
Just naming it can take away some of its power, can it? Makes it feel less like this overwhelming wave.
It absolutely does.
Hmm.
And then comes the second question, the real cycle breaker. Will buying this specific thing permanently fix this core feeling?
Oh.
So, if you've identified lonely, ask yourself, will these specific shoes magically introduce me to deep, lasting friendships? If you identify stressed, will this gadget make my workload disappear forever?
And the answer, if you're being truly honest, is always going to be no, isn't it? The shoes don't cure loneliness. The gadget doesn't eliminate stress. They might distract you for 5 minutes, but they're not the solution.
And recognizing that consciously, saying it to yourself, this purchase is a temporary distraction, not a real fix for what's actually wrong. That's the moment the impulse starts to lose its grip. You're injecting rational thought into that emotional storm. You start to get your power back.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And it leads really nicely into the second strategy, which feels like the perfect antidote to that hedonic adaptation problem, investing in experiences.
Yeah, the research on this is incredibly strong and consistent. Money spent on experiences, things like travel, going to concerts, learning a skill, taking a class, even just a really nice meal out with friends, generates longer lasting and more meaningful happiness than money spent on material objects.
Why is that, though? Why does the joy from a trip stick around longer than the joy from a new phone or car?
Well, experiences become part of who you are. In a way objects don't. They turn into memories, stories, skills. They become part of your personal narrative. A phone gets old, breaks, becomes obsolete. But the memories from that trip, the skills you learn in that class, they're yours forever. They don't really depreciate psychologically. If anything, we often remember experiences more fondly over time.
So the phone might get lost or stolen, but you don't lose the memory of climbing that mountain or the ability to speak that language you learned.
Exactly. You're building what you might call experiential capital. It's internal wealth. Plus, experiences are often shared with others, which strengthens social bonds, another key source of happiness. Material goods are often acquired and used alone, and can even create social comparison and envy. Experiences contribute to who you are, your identity. Possessions mostly just signal what you have. It's a much more robust foundation for well-being.
That really clicks. Enriching who you are versus just enriching what you own.
And that focus on internal wealth brings us nicely to the third strategy, which is about actively retraining our brain away from that constant need more feeling, embracing minimalism and the practice of gratitude.
Minimalism sometimes gets a bad rap, right? People picture empty white rooms or like owning only 3 shirts. But the philosophy here is more about intention, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's not about deprivation. Minimalism in this context is really a conscious rejection of that core consumer message that more is always better. It's about simplifying intentionally. The goal is to shift your focus from the sheer quantity of stuff you have to the actual value, the usefulness, the joy that your existing possessions bring you. You stop seeing empty spaces as voids to be filled and start appreciating the things you already have that genuinely serve you well.
So less about having nothing, more about making sure everything you do have is intentional and adds value.
Precisely. And practical ways to do this might include things like the one-in, one-out rule. If you buy something new, something similar has to go. Or maybe implementing a mandatory waiting period, say 30 days, before buying any non-essential item over a certain price.
Ah, that waiting period ties back to strategy 1, right? Letting the initial impulse cool down.
Exactly. It gives you time for that emotional trigger awareness and rational thought to kick in. It helps shift you out of that anxious, must-acquire now mode into a more considered, do I truly need or want this mode.
That shift from wanting more to valuing what's already here feels like the fundamental rewiring needed.
And that's where gratitude practice becomes such a powerful daily tool. Remember the hedonic treadmill. It thrives on your mind, constantly scanning for what's missing, what you lack, the next thing. Gratitude practice deliberately forces your brain to pivot, to focus on what you already have, what's already good, what's abundant in your life right now.
So how can someone listening actually do that? Make it a real practice.
It's simple, but needs consistency. Take a few minutes each day, maybe first thing in the morning or last thing at night, and intentionally write down, or even just think about, 3 specific things you currently possess that you usually take for granted. And this could be anything. Material things, relationships, skills, even just basic comforts. You might write, I'm grateful for my warm bed, or I'm grateful for my ability to walk, or I'm grateful for that friend who always listens.
By forcing yourself to acknowledge the good stuff that's already there, the functional stuff, the supportive people, You're actively fighting that default dissatisfaction setting.
You're literally reprogramming your neural pathways, shifting the dominant mental track from lack, desire, anxiety toward appreciation, sufficiency, abundance. It directly undermines the psychological fuel that the whole consumption frenzy runs on. It helps you step off the treadmill.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really has peeled back the layers on this very sophisticated illusion, hasn't it? This idea sold to us that buying stuff is the path to happiness when actually it often leads to debt and distress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the main takeaway, the one thing we really hope sinks in is this. Your worth as a person, your fundamental value, has absolutely nothing to do with your bank balance or how much stuff you own or what brands you wear. Zero.
Consumption promises it all, doesn't it? Belonging, status, feeling complete. It tells you you're not enough without this product or that experience. But as we've seen, it's mostly a setup. It's engineered psychologically and chemically to leave you wanting more, leading to financial stress, regret, and ultimately keeping you stuck chasing a feeling that never quite lasts.
Because real, sustainable happiness, that deep sense of well-being, it doesn't come from what you buy. It comes from what you do, how you spend your time, who you connect with, the experiences you have, and ultimately, who you become through your own efforts and growth.
So we want to leave you with a final thought, something to really chew on. Think right now about one specific item you own. Maybe it's the most expensive thing or the thing you feel most defines your status or makes you feel valuable. Got it.
Okay, now imagine you lose it tomorrow. It's gone, stolen, broken, vanished. Does your actual self-worth, your kindness, your intelligence, your ability to love, your humor, does any of that decrease because the object is gone?
If losing the object doesn't diminish your intrinsic value as a human being, then acquiring that object couldn't possibly have created that value in the first place, could it? Your real worth was always there, completely separate from your possessions. Untouched.
Go build something valuable within yourself. Don't just buy something expensive outside yourself. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.